and this is my point again, Amanda, right? Which is this $275 promise. Now, they'll all say that the fig leaf is the asterisk, it's 2025. That's why I say to people, get your power bill from the election day and go back to it in 3 years' time, because maybe magically it'll be down $275 from whatever the record peak is in 2024. But the assumption is when you go to an election and say it'll be $275 cheaper, the assumption of the Australian people is from the moment you make the promise, right? Now, this is where they're going to get on the sticky paper. And I know that there's people who would have torn your political party apart for breaking a promise who are now advising them to break this promise via the way they ask questions. But here was some back and forth in QT today. Have a look.
Before the election, the Prime Minister promised that if he was elected, power prices would drop by $275. Can he advise the House how it is possible to have prices rise by more than 50% but fall by $275 at the same time?
They so detested the idea of landing an energy policy when it looked like being landed, they instead lopped off a Prime Minister instead. Not once, but twice. Not once, but twice. Twice. And they ended up with the member for Cook. The shadow minister interjects. The energy prices went down under the former government. Really? Really?
Now, of course, Amanda, the reason he said the member for Cook was hopefully that'd be a cutaway of Scott Morrison and then, we'd all be scared again. But look, again, they are not going to be able to deliver on this promise, which means they'll either break it or they never meant it.
Well, I think they've already walked away from it. It's as good as broken. And I think, dear old Joe, you're being very generous to them when you describe them as keeping their promises. This one was, made in May, and by October, it's well and truly in the dustbin. And let's be real here, while the war in Ukraine plays a role, that's not the only factor that's driving higher energy prices. There is a deliberate strategy that's been taken to reach an emissions reduction target swiftly. That has consequences for the price of energy. And the more we overinvest in renewables at the expense of reliable baseload energy, we end up with the kinds of wild peaks when the sun's not shining or the wind's not blowing. That means overall the cost is much higher. These are the direct product of policy choices that have been made by this government, and there is a real comparison to the last government. It wasn't huge, but energy went down 8% in its cost. That's a huge difference to the 56% increase over 2 years we've been now told by Labor to expect.